Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio. News Talk, 1180 for the best, the absolute best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and at 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday. And for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay. And behind the big board, our producer, Greg Held. Clay, great show with Mark and Kathy Abernathy. They sure know their stuff when it comes to politics.
Well, they're always interesting, but I have to say, Mark, Sarah Palin is not going to be the candidate.
I don't even think she's going to be VP.
I know. Mark's a fun guy, isn't he?
I like Mark. And the two of them together are fantastic in the studio. I like it a lot.
You know, I have to make one statement, though, Marty. We have to keep it clean because we're on the Christian station now.
Have we not kept it clean?
Well, it's been on the edge a couple of times.
Well, that's...
Put your shirt on.
Put my shirt on. Okay, on that note. And we'll need to have Kathy and Mark back in the studio sometime before November because it's going to be some interesting races coming.
Well, and right after November, too, when we talk about the election of Mitt Romney.
Oh, you mean you finally decided that Obama's not going to win this thing?
Well, the more I listen to him, the less confidence I have in him.
Well, you didn't have any confidence to begin with, but you were going to bet the farm that Obama was going to win. What happened?
Well, I think he's agitating everybody. He's turning on everybody. He's divided the country.
Well, you know, he's had a pretty bad week and a half lately, unfortunately.
He's had a pretty bad 3.5 years.
Yeah, what I mean, even if his supporters are not supporting him right now.
Well, he lost 11% of the liberal Jewish Democratic vote in New York City, as an example.
Uh-huh.
He's lost 4% of the Hispanic vote, a couple of percent on the black vote.
His people lost in Wisconsin.
Yeah, they lost big time in Wisconsin.
Sure. Yeah. So it's gonna make it all the more interesting. But, well, we can talk about this later. But I think there's going to be an October surprise. You wait. Something will happen in October that is going to get him some votes.
Well, you can't believe the stuff this guy is saying now that he has helped the economy.
Right.
Where, when, and how.
Right. And there is no problem.
Not that he thinks there's no problem, because he lives in a vacuum area back in Washington where they all think there's no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep. Next week, we're going to have retired three-star General William Jerry Boykin, and he's going to talk about Sharia law, another subject that you and I have been involved in a lot lately.
You know, Sharia law, the threat to America, and Jerry Boykin's going to be speaking at Canyon Hills Church on July 2nd.
Yes.
Tickets are only $10, and if you haven't got your ticket, you need to be there to hear General Boykin speak about Sharia law, the threat to America.
We highly recommend that, and we
recommend it.
Recommend it?
Recommend it.
You silly wabbit. Twix are for kids. But this week, in the second half, we have Nick Gleason, former commanding officer of the China Lake Weapons Base.
And who's Mick Gleason, Marty?
He is running for 1st District Supervisor.
Here in Kern County?
Here in Kern County.
And he's running against?
Roy Ashburn.
Wonderful. That'll be a great race.
Yes, it should be.
Because Roy's been elected, I think, several times out of Kern County for several different positions. And Mick, I listened to Mick talk recently at a debate, and boy, he came on really, really strong.
Yeah, I like Mick a lot.
And unfortunately, Roy didn't make that debate, so I couldn't hear the two of them go up against each other. But on September 21st, we're putting together what we call the Great Debate, where we're going to have all the candidates from all the races come together on one day, Friday, September 21st, at the Doubletree Hotel, starting at 9 a.m. in the morning and hopefully ending by 5. And people can come and listen to their favorite candidate from all races, the federal races, the state races, and the local races.
Boy, you put in a nice little plug there. That was great.
Joy, it was a nice...
Yeah, you did a good job.
Nice key in there, wasn't it?
You just kind of slipped it in there. I like that.
Well, it's pretty exciting. I'm excited about it. And the day before, we're going to have a golf tournament for anybody that wants to play in that, and then a little cocktail party that night to get everybody loosened up for the debates on Friday. And
I understand you've got a really talented master of ceremonies.
Yeah, I have Scott Wood coming in. He's a great comedian. We had him on the show once. Isn't that what you meant?
Put it up.
That guy? Yeah, Scott's really funny. He told some great stories. He's not going to be the MC, though. He's going to be the noontime entertainment.
Oh, okay. You've already set that up. That's great.
But as far as the MC, I forgot who we're going to have somebody from the Clay and Marty show on to do the emceeing,
how
I
about
believe.
That, huh?
And then for each debate, I'm not sure who we're going to have, but I want to get somebody who has a keen interest in the race, like maybe for the first supervisor race, we might have Karen Go be the moderator.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, you need to talk to Karen before you mention it on the air.
Well, Karen, you're invited to be the moderator.
But the moderator?
The moderator. It should be really exciting.
Yes,
and then for Mick and Roy, what was that?
No, you're fine.
Oh, I thought you were waving at me there.
Not at you.
Telling me to cut it off or something.
No, not at you. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
But in the first half of the show, we have an old friend of the program, author, commentator, and son of President Ronald Reagan, Michael Reagan. Mike, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Good, but I need to remind everybody, I also had a mother. I wasn't the Immaculate Conception. It's really funny. When I was growing up, I was Jane Wyman's son because Dad was just a Hollywood guy. Then I became Ronald Reagan's son, and people forgot I had a mother. But I really had two parents. So I thought I'd just share that with everybody.
Whenever I think of your mom, I think of that movie Pollyanna.
There you go, Pollyanna, Aunt Polly.
Yeah, that was a great, great movie. She had a great part in that.
Yeah.
Well, let's start off. Let me ask you a question about your mom. All the years I've known you, I've never asked you any questions about your mom.
Nobody ever asked about my mom. She passed away in 2007.
Yes, I do remember that. But tell me about your mom. I mean, she wasn't anything at all like the Pollyanna character, was she? The Aunt Polly character.
No, I mean she was a girl that was left on a doorstep in St. Joe, Missouri, by her parents, taken in by the neighbors next door. She went from Sarah Jane Maysfield to Sarah Jane Fulks. Came out to California, got in the acting business. She broke into Hollywood as a singer dancer. And then, moved her way on up from there, got the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1948 with Johnny Belinda. She was nominated 3 more times. Her movie Lost Weekend with Ray Milland got Best Picture. 1951 with Bing Crosby in the Cool, Cool, Cool the Evening, got Best Song. I mean, she was terrific. And then, hopefully she was buried in 2007, a lot of people don't know, as a Dominican nun to the Third Order.
Wow.
In full regalia.
She was a nun?
Yeah, she ended up being buried as a lay, a Dominican nun to the Third Order.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
interesting, a couple of years ago, I was speaking at a Legatus function in Bermuda, and they, of course, applauded me because they introduced me as the son of Ronald Reagan. And I said, well, that's very nice that you applaud the fact I'm the son of Ronald Reagan. But with a few cardinals in the room and what have you, I thought you may rather know that my mother was buried as a nun. And they all just like their jaws dropped.
Yeah, I would never have guessed that. Well, listen, speaking of your background, I want to talk for a second, since we're doing this, about your, not your current book, The New Reagan Revolution, which I think is a classic, but the book you wrote before that, Twice Adopted. And I don't know if I've mentioned this to you on the air or not before, but that book really, really got to me. I mean, now I've known you off and on since the mid-'70s, so I was able to track a lot of things in your life and mine through that book. But that is a really, really touching book, and I highly, highly recommend it.
You still get it on Amazon.com. And the book is used in Houston, Texas, in the Woodlands, actually, by the Arrow Ministries Group as a training manual, actually, for people who work with children who have been abused, children in foster care, and what have you. And if I had my brothers, Marty, that's where I would be. I would be working with children 24/7 instead of just always doing the political thing, because my last name happens to be Reagan.
Sure.
That's where people pigeonhole me. But my heart really is, working with kids. And now, of course, with this whole thing with the Sandusky trial, I can tell you, every child who's ever been sexually molested, listening to the news and listening to the testimony at trial, many of us are reliving our time when we were being sexually abused by our abusers, because it's so similar what these abusers do and how they lure children into their lair, if you will, and take advantage.
And that happened to you in a summer camp, if I remember right.
Actually, in a day camp, after-school day camp that I was in when I was in 3rd grade. I was 8 years old, and ultimately the man took nude photographs of me and had me develop the photographs at his apartment, and said, wouldn't your mother like to have a copy, of these photographs? And my life changed. I mean, I walked away from God, I walked away from life, I walked away from friends, and didn't tell anybody till 1987 when I wrote my first book, on the outside looking in. Of course, in the book you're talking about, which is, twice adopted, and I go out and give my testimony at different organizations. But it's a horrific problem. I mean, when you consider that the average number of children that a predator will molest in their lifetimes is 117 children.
Wow.
That's the average.
Wow.
And the damage that is done to a child, how it just wipes out, their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who does the molesting, for the most part, when you read the stories, but he's such a nice guy. He's a wonderful human being. He has a heart of gold. Oh, my gosh. I love having him watch my kids.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
It seems that the molester is always the good guy.
Yeah.
And I wonder why the child doesn't tell anybody. What do you tell? And who do you tell?
Sure. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about what you're doing now, and let's talk about that proposition that may or may not be coming up in 2014. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.